Mary Daly's 1973 book, Beyond God the Father, has the subtitle, Towards a Philosophy of Women's Liberation. Daly describes the progress of the women's movement at her time of writing, explaining how women of all types have come to recognise the basic sameness of our situation as women and have been initiated into the struggle for liberation of our sex from its ancient bondage. This is a strong, clear statement of who the women's liberation struggle is for. Women are a sex, and while there are many different types of women, we all have something in common, and that gives us common cause. She describes the common cause in terms of a caste system. There exists a worldwide phenomenon of sexual caste, basically the same whether one lives in Saudi Arabia or in Sweden. This sexual caste system involves birth-ascribed, hierarchically ordered groups whose members have unequal access to goods, services and prestige, and to physical and mental well-being. This sexual caste system involves birth-ascribed, hierarchically ordered groups whose members have unequal access to goods, services and prestige, and to physical and mental well-being. The usage of the word caste is deliberate, picking up on the insights made available through a parallel to the Indian system of rigid social stratification. Who is responsible for this caste system? According to Daly, we are all complicit in it. She says the exploitative sexual caste system could not be perpetuated without the consent of the victims, as well as of the dominant sex, and such consent is obtained through sex role socialization, a conditioning process which begins to operate from the moment we are born and which is enforced by most institutions. Parents, friends, teachers, textbook authors and illustrators, advertisers, those who control the mass media, toy and clothes manufacturers, professionals such as doctors and psychologists, all contribute to the socialisation process. This happens through dynamics that are largely uncalculated and unconscious, yet which reinforce the assumptions, attitudes, stereotypes, customs and arrangements of sexually hierarchical society. It is the socialisation of male and female people into sex roles that creates the sexual caste system. But rather than pinning this on men, who are the ones to take the superior position in that caste system, Daly also points at women when she talks about the consent of the victims and the whole social structure when she talks about all the professionals and institutions through whom and through which sex socialisation is perpetuated. Daly notes that the fact that the sexual caste system is a caste system has been obscured. First of all, because the segregation of the sexes into separate roles has made it easier to buy into the idea of women's being equal to men but different. Second, because women can gain social status through their relationships to men, which can put women at odds. She says, this status divides us against each other and encourages identification with patriarchal institutions which serve the interests of men at the expense of women. And third, because sexist ideology declares the sex hierarchy to be natural, particularly patriarchal religion, which advertises it as according to the divine plan. This makes clear just how much women are up against and how incredible it is as an accomplishment that feminism ever happened. There actually are sex differences, and these could, in principle, explain some or even all differences in social outcomes between men and women. Women themselves are at odds, either through their relationships to men or through other loyalties like political lines, class lines and racial lines. And everywhere we look, there is sexist ideology telling us we are a certain way by nature. The massive authority of the church propagates this message. It is throughout our culture, in the books we read and the entertainment we consume. And yet somehow, incredibly, some women did become aware that all this was a massive scam, and that women were capable of more than was being alleged for them, that women were not by nature as they had been made to be by culture. And this realisation is what produced feminism, the attempt to bring other women to the same realisation and then into the fight to get rid of the sex caste system, which means to get rid of all the entrenched and pervasive socialisation of male and female people into sex roles. This is why the radical feminists, of which Daly is one, are often referred to as gender abolitionists or gender annihilationists, because they want to get rid of sex roles and leave sexed people free of such constraints. That women realise their predicament is a central concern of Daly's. She thinks women's liberation has revolutionary potential and will change consciousness itself. It is centrally bound up with language. This is because men alone have developed our lexicon. As Daly says, women have had the power of naming stolen from us. We've not been free to use our own power to name ourselves, the world, or God. Our lexicon is therefore one in which feminist claims are nonsensical. A nice example is the sisterhood of man. In a lexicon in which man means both humanity and men, the sisterhood of man is a contradiction in terms. To utter feminist claims or think feminist thoughts is thus to develop a new lexicon. This new lexicon will not be wholly different. It will contain some old words, but it will also contain new words, and old words with new meanings. As she describes it, the method of liberation, then, involves the castrating of language and images that reflect and perpetuate the structures of a sexist world. It castrates precisely in the sense of cutting away the phallocentric value system imposed by patriarchy. Daly describes women as aliens in a man's world who are now rising up to name, that is to create, our own world. What does this creation look like in real terms? It seems to first involve each woman casting out something from her own self-conception. Daly describes women casting off the role of the other, the nothingness imposed by a sexist world. Together with other women, talking and discovering ourselves, we no longer settle for being a warped half of a person. We throw off role definitions and gain a new identity. She says, such women are no longer empty receptacles, internalising the projections of men. In going through this process, women start to heal. There is exorcism of the internal patriarchal presence, which carries with it feelings of guilt, inferiority and self-hatred, not to mention hatred of other women. It is as though, as women, we're all carrying around men's ideas about what we are, and men's contempt for us. And what it is to gain feminist consciousness is to cut those men out of ourselves. Their ideas about women actually have nothing to do with us as people. We must stop believing that they do. This is not an individual project, precisely because it would be virtually impossible to accomplish it alone. Women are trying to create an alternative reality, one in which they are fully human. They're up against patriarchal reality, which sees them as lesser, and this makes sisterhood, community among women, crucial to the success of feminism. Casting off sexist social conditioning and creating a new reality is something women can only do together, and that will be easier to maintain with greater numbers. To counteract men's ideas, Daly says, we can also build up female pride, raising up our own standards of how good it is to be a woman. And part of this female pride means not feeling guilty about centering our own cause, feminism, refusing to see this as an illegitimate rival to other causes. So this is what feminism is for Daly, the struggle of women, understood as a sex caste, to first imagine and then bring about a counter world, an alternative to the current state of society in which women are liberated from the sexual caste system, in which there is no sexual caste system, just sexed humans who are free and truly equal. The counterworld can only be achieved by women working together in sisterhood, not allowing themselves to be divided by their loyalties to men, and not allowing themselves to be persuaded to give up the fight for apparently more important things.